Okay, good evening, and welcome to the Arundel Camera Club meeting for Thursday, January 4th. My name is John Milliker, and I'm the club president for the 2024 season. The Arundel Camera Club was founded in 1957 and exists to promote the arts, science, and education in all aspects and fields of photography. For more information about us, please visit www.arundelcameraclub.org. We are happy that we are meeting in person and still streaming online. If you are local to us in Anne Arundel County, Maryland, we encourage you to visit us at the Severna Park Baptist Church, located at 506 Benfield Road, Severna Park, Maryland. Before we move on to tonight's program, do we have any officer announcements?
Yes, we have to remember that on the 13th of this month, we have a special tour of the Cathedral of the National Shrine at 2 o'clock. It's going to be just for us, so it's going to be wonderful. So don't forget to bring your cameras and get ready to get some wonderful shots, because we're going to have some contests on churches. Yeah, so that'd be perfect.
Okay, thank you, Ed. Christine, can you fix that camera for me? Because I have apparently put the camera the wrong way. There we go. I apologize for the Doctor Who kind of thing. Can you, come on, we're not rule of thirds in doing this.
Try not to do
there we go. Do we have any other announcements? Okay, we are into the 2024 season. I hope everybody had a great new year. I want to recommend and make sure people know that after the January 1st, our membership is now 50% off. That is now $20 a person, and that still gets you a lot of great perks for the end of the year. That's 45 photos, digital and prints, if you enter all of our contests. So if you are watching online, or we do have a couple new people in here, we recommend that you do join us to get your photos in. We're very easy and very sensitive to to all the new photographers. We won't make you cry, we promise, until you're in the unlimited class, and then I cry every night on my big pillow. We also are looking for officers for the end of the year. We always want to get fresh blood into our officer positions. We may even have some officers that may kind of want to say, hey, it's time for someone else to help out. So if you're interested in any officer positions or helping out any officers to kind of see what it's all about, especially maybe the contest chair, they need a lot of help. And they do such a great job, but it's always great to have somebody in that can kind of help out as well there. So I just wanted to let you know, if you're interested, email me or any of the officers at the club. We do have some bad news, and the person that actually kind of found that news and posted so eloquently about that news. I asked him to come up here to the podium and speak about this wonderful photographer.
Yeah. So as many of y'all may have seen, this week we lost Anthony Casado. He's one of our members. He had joined the club in 2021. What most of us didn't know is he's been battling cancer for the last 3 years. The last time we all got to see him in person is when he made a special trip here at the beginning of the club year just to drop off his dues. And in November, he sent an email saying, I hope to get back home soon. I miss not being able to do any photography. I'm watching online. Keep in touch. He also helped last year. He's one of the club members that helped on our contest theme committee to help select the themes this year. So as you go through those themes this year, think about Anthony. He was one of the people that helped pick them. And a lot of you may remember that last year's Christmas party, he was the lucky recipient of the white elephant Christmas gift that's been going around for 30 years. And if you look back at that newsletter, you'll see what a good time he was having. So he was only with us for a short amount of time. He definitely made the club richer by his presence and his photographs. And John's going to share some of his photographs right now, so if we can just take a moment of silence and enjoy them.
Thank you, Mike, for that. That's very, very touching and just very, very sad. Let's move over to Christine, our programs chair, to talk a little bit about our upcoming schedule.
Actually, first I wanted to, we have a few new people here tonight. Would either of you be interested in saying hi and telling us a little bit about yourself so we can welcome you?
I'm Jim Hyatt. This is my first meeting here. I live in Serona Park, and I got reinterested into photography by taking a course at the Anne Arundel Community College. So I found that to be quite challenging, and so I'm just looking forward to learning more about my camera, taking some photos, and having some fun.
Great.
It's good to be
Welcome,
here.
Jim.
Can I just say same? My name is Jennifer. I have 3 boys who are grown and pretty much out of the house, and I took pictures of them all growing up and stuff, and then the cell phone camera, and then my husband said, I think you need a real camera. So I have a real camera for a couple years and don't really know too much what to do with it. So that's where I am.
You're in the right place. Welcome.
So now let's review our schedule for the next few weeks. Next week on January 11th, we have our first digital contest of the year with the theme of open. On January 13th is our field trip that Ed was telling us all about. On January 18th, we have a program by Chris Spielman on pre-visualization. On January 25th, we have our first color and monochrome print contest of the year, also with the theme of open. And then on February 1st, we have a program by our own Harry Crossland on mirrorless cameras. Tonight, we have a program by Padma Inguva, and Padma's passion for photography goes beyond her incredible love for photographing flowers, which she gave a program to us on last year. It extends and encompasses the architectural world and all its wonders, which include photographing places of worship, especially interiors. As a photographer and a student of civil engineering, she has managed to incorporate the 2 disciplines into an art form. Her appreciation of the neoclassical architecture has led to her capture of some of the magnificent religious structures in the USA. Welcome, Padma.
Hello, Christine. Thank you so much for inviting me back. I remember speaking a couple of years ago, I think pre-COVID, if I remember correctly, right? 2, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, I don't remember, the time flies. So I am a photographer from New Jersey. I work in DC, so I commute quite a bit. And recently I started working from home more rather than coming every week. And that's why I'm sorry I couldn't come in person. Otherwise, I would have. Second, I'm a photographer that experiments in a lot of different things. Places of worship is one of the things that I'm really obsessed about, along with flowers. I do a lot of seascapes and long exposures. And so I think that I gave a presentation on flowers before. So let's do places of worship this time, right? And it's very apt that you're going to the National Basilica. And if we have enough time, I'm going to show you some of the images that I've taken from the Basilica itself. I've been there a few times. I gave a couple of workshops from there. So let me see if I can share some of those images. Anyway, all right. There's a lot of text, because I just don't want to post my pictures and then just tell stories. I also want to give you some tips that you can actually take it to the field. And that's why, and if you do have any questions, please feel free to stop me and ask me, rather than waiting until end of the presentation. And that way I can actually talk about it in the context itself. All right. So I don't limit myself to just the churches and cathedrals and mosques. I go to museums, any spectacular interior places. Like, for example, World Trade Center, it has a beautiful oculus. I recently went to London, so I have done museums there. So yeah, I don't limit myself, but I love churches. I love the colorful windows, and I like to play with the zoom blurs, pans. I love to play with them after the fact in post processing. So I'm going to share some of those ideas with you guys today. All right. If you want to see some of my work, you can go to padmasworld.com. And on social media, you can look me up on Facebook. I'm on 500 pics. I'm on Instagram. But I'm more responsive on Facebook because I'm used to that a little bit more. And my email address is pinguva@gmail.com. If you have any questions about any of the images that I've shown you, if you want to learn about the locations, reach out to me. Or if you want to share any beautiful churches in your local areas with me, I travel quite a bit and I would love to visit and then take some pictures of my own, because I'm always looking for new places to go. All right. Okay, so now I want to share with you these two images. These are pretty bad if you look them closely. The reason is these are my very, very, very first church pictures. This is Notre Dame Basilica in Montreal, Canada, not Paris. So this is 2013, and at the time I was 43 years old, and this is my first church ever I visited in my entire life. And there was a show going on. It's called the Light and Sound Show at the time. And this blue light was bathing the entire basilica. It was so beautiful. There were about 600 to 800 people in the cathedral, but everybody was pin drop silent because they were so taken by this whole experience of it. And after the show was over, they gave us some time to go ahead and photograph, but I cannot carry a tripod. So I was hand holding it. There was a crop sensor camera. I don't think I knew what I was doing. I was just probably like a year into photography at the time. But when I looked at on my screen, the camera screen, it looked fantastic and I was really pleased. So I drive back 7, 8 hours back to New Jersey, put it up on the computer, and you see that this is a little blurry. And because I used high ISO, it was very noisy. This is completely blurry. The only thing that I liked out of all this is the composition. So then I said, okay, see, this is another one. Beautiful composition, but it's blurry and noisy both. So again, I couldn't really see that for what it was behind the camera screen. I had to actually put it up on the PC to see it. So then I come home and I started obsessing about, okay, how do I make this better? And I, Google, and came across one photographer, German photographer called Klaus Ehrmann. And he just wrote a book on Votoramas at the time. So I bought the book and I realized that Votoramas are just a coin term for vertical panorama. And that was a little bit of too much of work for me at the time. So I said, okay, I'm going to start taking regular straight up shots first, become good at it, and then I can take up the Votoramas. So then went and bought myself a full frame camera and bought myself a 14 millimeter lens and a tilt shift lens and a fisheye lens. So I spent a lot of money and I started experimenting. And this is the very first image that I was happy with. This is about, I think, 3 to 4 months later after I went to the Basilica. And this is one of the churches that no longer exists. It's called St. Bridget's. It's in Jersey City, New Jersey. This building was sold and now they converted this into an apartment building. So no longer there, but the colors are beautiful. I think I got hooked after this particular visit to the church. All right, then I go past 2 years. My first Votorama, 2016, January, and this is basically about 6 frames stitched together. So 1 frame, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Basically, you can see the altar, the ceiling, all the way back up to the organ. And so that took me 2 years to learn how to do autoramas because I just did not have the time. I also work full time. Plus, there is a lot of technical knowledge that is required, and it took me all that time. So this is St. Peter, St. Paul Cathedral Basilica. That's in Philadelphia. So then the rest is history. So this was taken in January 2016. And in 2016 alone, I went to about 110 churches. Like literally every weekend, I would go to either New York City, Connecticut, whatever that I could drive. I would just drive 2, 3, 4 hours was not a big deal for me. Right. And then every weekend, I would visit at least 5 to 7 churches. So you can imagine, I one weekend I went to Boston, stayed there for like 3 days, went to about 8, 9 churches all over Boston. And I came to DC for Thanksgiving. So I know that not many people are going to be in the churches crowded. So again, National Basilica, National Cathedral. I went to St. Nicholas. I went to St. Matthew's. It was crazy. So anyway, all in all, I think in my account, I went to 650 churches in last 8 to 10 years. All right. London, Venice, Valencia, Madrid. I still have to go to Rome at some point, but we'll wait and see. I feel like all my steps that I'm taking right now are leading me to Rome. And I want to stay there for about 2 months and visit all the churches and, well, at least as many as I can. All right. So that's a little bit the background, how I got started and how I got better at it. Okay. So now let's start about what's involved in photographing places of worship, right? For any kind of photography, doesn't matter if it is a place of worship or landscapes or flowers, you need 2 components, right? One is the source images, and the second one is the post-processing. Just like in the old analog photography where you take the pictures, but then unless you develop them, it's not done. Same way, you take the images using your camera, but it is not done until you process them, especially if you shoot them in RAW and then give them a little bit of makeup, right? I'm not sure what's happening. This keeps blanking out on me every couple seconds. Not sure. If it is a problem, please let me know, okay? All right.
It's showing fine on our side. It could be that it's on your side, but
Okay.
it's showing up fine here.
Well, it could be
Got
a
it.
connection. It could be a connection issue, but it's fine here, Padma.
Got it. Okay. So now when you have when I say the source images, right? Source images can be obtained by either using a tripod or you can do the handheld shooting. Now, I would prefer handheld shooting because I've been to Europe in last couple of years, at least a few cities. 99% of the churches do not allow museums. They don't allow tripods. So if you're so used to tripod, it will become your clutch and you won't be able to do what you want to do. So I started off with exclusively using tripod, and now I just don't use tripod. 99% of the time, I don't, only because I became good at it, and I also became more familiar with these advanced programs like Topaz Denoise AI. Even Lightroom came up with this nice noise reduction feature. And then there is another program that I recently, meaning about a year ago, discovered that's called DxO Labs. Noise reduction program. It's like really unbelievable. So now I'm not afraid to photograph at ISO 4000 or 6400 if I need to. So that's the beauty of the latest cameras and latest software that really makes it easy for you to do the handheld shooting.
Quick
All right,
question
so-
for you from our Facebook page.
Yeah.
For the churches that don't allow tripods, would any of them be okay with monopods?
So monopods generally are okay as long as it doesn't have, at least in one place that they told me that if it has like a 3 legs, even as a base, they consider that as a tripod. So it is case by case basis. I personally don't like monopods. I think that it's more like a hindrance because I do a lot of wateroramas, and for wateroramas, monopods are not good anyway. But if your monopod does not have a base, three-legged base, I don't see a problem. If
Okay,
it does
thank you.
have a base, I see a problem. Yeah. All right. So now the other thing that I do generally is I actually sit down on the ground and then use my knees as as my base. And I started taking pictures that way. You really get some cool compositions that way. So in case if you have shaky hands like I do, that would be the another alternative that you could do. Just sit in the middle of the church. Don't worry about dust and all that. And yeah. Anyway, all right. So let's get back to the settings here, right? Okay, and also what I did here. I generally bracket my shots. Why do I do that? Is because if you look at this church here, right? You see there are dark areas and there are light areas. There's a huge difference. There is a lot of dynamic range, right? I won't be able to capture all that details in shadows and lights in one frame. This is the reason why you better use at least at the minimum 2. I would prefer 3 to 5. But if you're hand holding it, making 5 series in for one frame is going to be a little iffy because usually the whole last frame would become almost like a 1/10 of a second or something. And that's where you really introduce the shake. And that's the reason why I like to do either 2 or 3. My Canon, I can do 2. I use 2 different cameras. So one is a Canon, one is a Sony.
Are you there, Padma? Hello? I think we lost her.
2.8.
We lost you for a moment. Can you repeat what you just said? You
Sure.
disappeared.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So it's when you're using a wide angle lens such as 14 millimeter lens or a fisheye lens, which is 14, 15, or 16, the depth of field is like really, really good that you can get away using wider apertures. So my preferred aperture is anywhere between 2.8 to 4.5, 5.6 max if I'm hand holding it, so that I can keep my shutter speeds somewhat safer, right? So not to have the blur. So in this case, my shutter speeds are 1/20th of a second and 1/40th of a second. And if I am using a longer lens, for example, if I'm using a 24 by 105, my minimum shutter speed is going to be at least 1/60th of a second, because again, I don't trust myself with a little bit heavier lenses. 14 millimeter is pretty safe, and that's why I can go up to 1/20th. Now, if you look at this picture, you see that there are not many details, but you see some details in the windows, right? They're still blown up, kind of in this case, but I see some details. Whereas my next exposure here, they're completely blown off. You have no details whatsoever. But look at my shadows, they have like a lot more detail here. So I have one underexposed and one properly exposed for the shadows here. Now, what I would do in this case is combine them into HDR. So let's go to the next steps, right? So first steps is getting the source images. The next step or next component is post-processing. But within post-processing, you have 3 components again, 3 parts. The first part is to do the HDR. So what I did is I went back to these 2 images, and then I made an HDR out of these 2. That became this. But I still see some symmetry errors. I see that this is a little slanted. I don't see that being a finished image yet, right? So after I do my HDR, I apply white balance, proper white balance or whatever that I want to do. And then I take it into Photoshop, and then I do the next step, which is aligning and transforming. So let's go to that. Okay, so this is where I take it into Photoshop and I overlay a grid so that I can study if this is properly aligned? If it is not, then which direction that I need to move this image to, whether I need to rotate it, whether I need to stretch it one end, the other end, I need to warp it, or I need to correct the perspective. There's so many things that you can do. So this is the step, right? Where you want to make it as symmetrical as you can go. And then the next step would be, well, so this is my process. This is the grid, and I am trying to make this come right into the center here. So it takes quite a bit of work. It's not just a couple seconds, right? It takes 10, 15 minutes. Sometimes your eyes get tired, so you want to walk away, come back a little later. So take your time, and I want you to make sure watch as many videos as you can on transformation tool in Photoshop. But most of all, though, just watching videos are not going to do anything for you unless you actually get in the weeds and then actually start, pulling these grids around, right? If you're warping, you can actually hold the mouse here and then pull it. You can do a lot of different things that videos cannot really help you. You have to do it. You have to get your hands dirty. Okay, so all right, so now that I'm done my second step, which is aligning and transforming, let's go to the next step, that is tone mapping. So what is tone mapping? So
I have a quick question for you really quickly.
yeah.
Some of our newer members may not be familiar with HDR. Can you give a brief description of what that means?
Yeah, sure. So let me go back to that. All right, so HDR means high dynamic range. What does that mean? When you walk into a church or any kind of a big facility, right? There are some corners that are really dark, and there are like windows where the light pours in, and it's very, very bright. That means you have lots of highlights, lots of darks. In that case, you really cannot capture all the details in one go. So you take 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 different images of the same exact frame, but you're bracketing them. So you're going to do like 2 underexposed, 2 stops underexposed, 1 stop underexposed, properly exposed, and then 1 overexposed, so that you can capture in every step of the way most of the details, right? But then there are 5 different images. What are you going to do? So there are programs, Lightroom, or there are other, Luminar, a couple of other different programs that used to be Photomatics, used to be very big. So what these programs do is they take these 2 or 3, whatever the number of images that you've taken, the bracketed shots, and they're going to take details from each area, combine them, and give you a lot more detailed image. Okay. Previously, when first HDR came out, we're talking about like 12, 15 years ago, it used to be like really bad HDR, really, really bad HDR. I've seen plenty of bad HDR being done, too garish, too over the top. But eventually, once like around 2015, when Lightroom introduced the HDR feature in their program, things kind of turned around a little bit, and HDR became a lot more of a little part of a bigger workflow. And basically, if you take these 2, and then let's go to the next one, you see how this is HDR and a little bit of white balance adjusting. I did not do anything else. And you see how much detail that you can clearly see from those 2 images. So that is basically HDR, and it is not difficult. If you have Lightroom, okay, all you have to do is go back to these 2 images. These are the source images. Do not apply any changes whatsoever, because all your changes, you can do them to the HDR image. So combine these 2, right click, select these 2, right click, and you say merge to HDR in Lightroom. Voila, it will spit it out for you, a DNG file with the HDR details in it. And that is the DNG file, this one. Okay, it is as simple as that. Now, you can make it more complicated. And how are you going to make it complicated? Okay, suppose you're standing here and you're trying to make a picture, and then the people walk in. In this case, I was lucky that there are two people sitting there, they're not moving. But while you're taking the picture, somebody walks in. They keep moving while you're taking pictures. That means, let's go back to these, right? So in this image, the first image, the person is here. And then this image, the person moved a little bit. So when the HDR is being stitched or being merged, it doesn't know, the program doesn't know the person here moved slightly to person here. So it makes a kind of a ghosting effect. So in the old days, you literally had to correct the ghosting by yourself. There is no automated process. Whereas Lightroom nowadays became so good that you can mention if there are people in your pictures that are moving, you can actually mention how much ghosting correction that you can do in the Lightroom. So like I said, it can be as simple. If there are all stationary subjects in here, no problems, no ghosting, to very complicated ghosting removal that you can do with your programs. But if you're a beginner and you just simply want to do HDR, the easiest way to do it is to take just two images. One is under, one is a one stop over, and then take them into Lightroom, select both of them, right click, and say merge to HDR. Well, don't say it. I mean, click on it. You can say it, it won't take it. And that's it. Voila. It is as simple. And then you can start applying sharpening, noise reduction, white balance correction, all those things to the DNG file that it gives you. Okay, I hope I gave you at least like an elevator pitch on the HDR. It is a very big topic, but that's just the introduction of it.
Thank you very much for introducing that to our newer members.
No problem. All right. So the last step in the post-processing is tone mapping. Okay. Now, what is tone mapping? So I, generally tell people that, okay, you like in the morning, right? Brush your teeth, you take shower, you come out, and that is aligning and transforming. Tone mapping is where, we ladies, we spend like another 10, 15 minutes getting ready, apply foundation, put mascara, and, make our hair. So basically, you're getting ready to step out to do your work, but you want to prepare yourself to be shown to others. So it's the same thing. Tone mapping is nothing more than that. So basically, in this case, what I did was I saturated the colors just a little bit, and I applied a little bit more contrast to it. So basically, I put on a bit of a lipstick and a mascara to the image. Okay, just put it simply. So those are all the steps that are involved in taking the images. Okay, now what equipment do I use, right? Of course, you can take images with your iPhone, but I'm a snob, so I only use my iPhone to, record the locations and snapshots and that kind of thing. But if I want to make fine art photography, I use the DSLR. And I actually have a few friends who completely switched over to iPhone, and they're very happy for a couple of reasons. One, I think that iPhone can do pretty much everything that DSLR can do. It's just that I cannot switch my mind around it, but I know that it is capable. And second is, when you're getting old and you don't want to walk with a lot of weight and such, it's easy to carry a little tripod, a little stand for your iPhone, and voila, you got everything that you need. So anyway, as for me, all this equipment that I am recommending is what I use. It does not mean that you have to follow exactly. Okay, so now I have a wide angle lens for the big picture, meaning show as wide image as possible of the church. And I love my fisheye lens. I love it. So that's for distorted images. And I'm going to show you some of the examples of that. And I use the tilt shift lens for straight lines. And I also carry telephoto lens to capture more details. This a little less, but all these three are staples in my camera bag. Okay, all these three, meaning wide angle, fisheye, tilt shift, all those three. Telephoto lens, meaning a 70 to 200 lens. If I have enough time on my hands, then I would usually carry that with me so that I can spend more time at the church. But if I'm visiting 4 or 5 churches in one day, I wouldn't have time to use every lens. So I have to pick and choose what I want to do. All right. Now, a tripod or a monopod, I generally carry my tripod. And most of the places I usually go by drive, so it sits in my car. If the church allows the tripod, then the tripod comes in with me. If it doesn't, then I leave it in the car. Now, I always have the L plate that is mounted onto my tripod just in case. Even if I'm hand holding it, my camera has the L plate mounted already. And now a remote trigger is very necessary if you're using a tripod, in my opinion. And a level, well, so nowadays every camera comes with a level built in. But when I first started, my camera did not have a level. So I used to carry a little $7 bubble thingy that goes on the camera to make sure that I'm level all the time. So you don't need to, if your camera or your tripod both have them. Okay. However, this is very important, especially if you're visiting like 3, 4, 5 churches in one go. The spare batteries and spare memory cards are very important because, especially if you're a Sony user, you know what I'm talking about. It eats up the batteries like crazy. So I have like 5, 6 batteries and a couple of memory cards going with me. And also when it comes to memory cards, get the max speed that you can afford, because it's important. And sometimes your memory cards fail you on the right when you really need it. And especially say if you're in the middle of like Italy or someplace, and if memory card fails you, at least you have spare to go by. Okay, this is another one. It's kind of optional if you're not doing a lot of HDRs or waterramas. But if you're planning to go for waterrama photography, this is very, very important. And it took me 2 years to stitch my first waterrama, partly because of I did not have a fast enough computer. So now I have a gaming computer with lots of memory power and all that, and a huge monitor and all that. And that's my PC. I don't use Mac. Is getting older now, so it's about 7 years old. But anyway, at the time, I really saved up almost for a year before I bought this computer that I have now. All right, so now let's talk about settings. And I'm telling you that these settings are only kind of a baseline. Depends on the lighting conditions where you're standing. Makes a big difference. If you're shooting in winter, there's no dapple light, or if the church does not have any lights on. So it all depends on what is the available light, basically. And also the settings change if you're hand holding versus tripod. So use them as guidelines and adjust after you take a shot. Make sure you read the histogram and see. And if you like what you saw, that's good. If you're not, you have to adjust as needed. I start usually for indoor photography handheld 1600, and usually 1600 is not going to be enough. So I might have to bump up to 3200, 4000. Like I said, I'm not afraid to go to 6400 if needed. I don't go beyond that if I can help it, beyond 6400. But ideally, I would like to stay between 16 to 4000. Now, because I'm using a wide lens, 2.8 to 5.6 is more than enough for a good depth of field, aperture-wise. And shutter speed, depending on what lens you're using, I like to be around 1/60th of a second. It's not practical all the time, so sometimes I might have to go down to 1/20th of a second, but that's where I draw my line. Anything slower than that, I cannot accept it. So I bump up my ISO to keep my shutter speed faster than 1/20th of a second. Now, if you don't know how to use your auto bracket feature on your camera, please do, because that's very, very important. So generally, I do 3 auto bracketed shots, 1 stop apart, or if the dynamic range is too much, then I go for 2 stop apart. It all depends on how the church is lit. Okay, I cannot tell you blindly follow my settings. You have to evaluate. Now, if I'm on a tripod, I'm not going for ISO 100 even then, because there will be people going back and forth and such. So I want to keep my ISO around 400 if I can help it. Most of cameras nowadays can easily handle 400 without a lot of issues. So gone are those days when people used to say, oh, 100 ISO or nothing, go home. No, I don't accept that anymore. Okay, and I would like to keep my aperture still under 8 or about 8. The reason is, when like there are like chandeliers or some kind of lights, artificial lighting in the church, if you're using f11, f16, sometimes they become like starry kind of lights. Okay, now the problem with that is, I used to like that when I first started, the stars in the lights, but it takes away from the overall image, because the stars, actually the starry lights, they stand out, and the entire church gets lost in those stars. And then I started to modify my settings, and then I like to keep it anywhere between 5.6 to f8, and my favorite setting is 7.1. And shutter speed generally does not matter if you are shooting with a tripod. But the problem is, if the people are moving in and out, you want to get out of there as fast as you can. So it does matter in a way. Okay. Now, if you're using aperture priority mode, let the camera do what it does. But if you're doing it in the manual mode, then you have to adjust the shutter speed, look for the crowds, look for the surroundings, adjust as you need. Now, when I'm on the tripod, I try to take 5 images rather than 3 images, because then I can capture a lot more detail. Now, what do I do for post-processing? What software that I use is basically I use Lightroom for my photo management. And I used to use Photomatics. I don't use that anymore. The Aurora HDR, I have the program. I used it for a little while. I don't use that anymore either, because Lightroom, in my opinion, is far superior, and it gives me a lot more neutral kind of image, which I want. I want to embellish the picture the way I want it. I don't want Aurora HDR Photomatics to embellish my HDR image. So that's why I like Lightroom better, because it just gives me the neutralized kind of image. Now, the other software that I use to process is Photoshop, Lightroom, Luminar, and I have a couple of other, like, other things like DxO Labs and Topaz Labs, which I occasionally use, not a lot. Now, the plugins are what I use to finish off the image. So 99.5% of my images go through either Nik or Topaz or Alien Skin, which is another plugin. They changed their name to Exposure Software. Between these 3, I use at least 1, sometimes 2 of these plugins to finish my image. I could use this to change the color palette a little bit. I could use these to change the contrast a little bit or add extra light, anything, right? So these are the 3 things that I use. So basically, remember the third step that I told you about, putting the makeup on? So these are the ones that I use to put the makeup on my picture. Now, we will see a lot more images. I just want to get it over with the etiquette of, like, what are the big rules? 3 big rules. One of them, you are at a place of worship, right? Be sensitive. Don't stand in front of people. Don't obstruct them, especially when people are worshiping. You don't want to just be loud and offensive. Okay, so try to be as discreet as possible. And I've seen many times people take out their flashes. Are you kidding me? This is it's a cathedral. Well, in a cathedral, right? Or a museum. It's so big that your flash is not going to take in all the light anyway. So why bother? So do not use the flash. Rather, increase your ISO sensitivity, right? If you're shooting at 800, make 1600 or make 3200, and take a lot more shots so that, at some point you stop shaking. Because sometimes, when you start shooting in the very beginning, your body is still trying to stabilize. So it takes a few shots So take a series of shots. You can delete them later if you want, but take more than what you need. Okay, but please do not use any flash. It's not only doesn't do its purpose, but you're going to be a hindrance for people who are worshiping there. So that's the second rule I would say. So if you think that the full tripod is going to be a problem, try using a monopod until you get used to the handhold, get used to the hand holding process of the camera. Okay, monopod is not bad, but again, I was told not to use it when I went to the World Trade Center in New York City. They said that a stand is a stand, doesn't matter if it has one leg or three legs. So now, lenses. Different lenses will give you different appearances. So I want to introduce you to tilt shift lens. So tilt shift lens is popular with architectural genre of photography, and it gives you straight lines. It has really great depth of field, even with like 3.54 IS aperture. But the problem is a lot of learning curve. It takes forever, especially if you're trying to hand hold it. It's hard. It took me deliberately took me almost like 3 to 4 months to get used to the knobs. Like there are like 1,000 knobs in there on a tilt shift lens. I have a Canon 24 tilt shift lens. I love it, but I hate to use it. So I love the results. Anyway, now you see how straight the lines are. There are no distortions, and so this is St. Rita Church in Philadelphia. It's straight lines, beautiful. What you see is what you get, basically. This is St. Patrick's Cathedral, and do you see there are only two people? Except for COVID times, I don't think that you see this kind of scene if you go to St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York City. And I will talk about how I plan my stuff later on, but just remember how empty this is, and then there is a story behind it. This, I don't remember which church. I think it's still St. Rita's in Philadelphia, I think, but yeah. And this is St. Patrick's. So tilt shift lens basically gives you straight lines and gives you more realistic look. Now comes the fisheye lens. And I love my fisheye lens. I bought it off of Craigslist for like $250, and that's back in 2014. And I still use it. I just went to Syracuse, Buffalo, Rochester, the 2 days before Christmas. And even then I carried the fisheye lens, with me. Everywhere I go, it goes with me. So what's so great about fisheye lens? Right? It's great depth of field. I use it at 2.8. Man, it's still very, very sharp. Okay. And it has this barrel distortion. Not everybody likes it. My sons, they don't like it. I love it. So, like I said, some love them, some hate them, and some hate them with passion. Okay. But it gives you like really a huge perspective, right? Bigger than 14 millimeter lens, my 15 fisheye lens has more perspective than the my 14 millimeter lens, rectilinear lens. So huge field of view, very strong distortions. And let me show you one picture so we can talk about the central part of the frame is less affected. So what it means is, see, this is not distorted. Whereas as and when you're moving from the center to outwards, it starts a distortion, right? So that is the characteristic of a fisheye lens. By the way, you guys are going to National Basilica? So the very first time I went to the Basilica, that was 2016 on a Thanksgiving Day. There are only, again, 2 people here. And this is in the basement, on the bottom floor, right? So you're not supposed to take pictures here. I did not know that. Okay, so I did not see the sign outside because I was too enthusiastic. So I take pictures. I come out, and I took pictures everywhere, right? And then 2 days later, I processed the pictures, sent it to their media director, asking them, hey, I came to the Basilica. Here are some pictures I want to share with you. And then she got mad at me, and she said, you know that you're not allowed to take pictures in the crypt? I'm like, oh my God, I did not know. Oh, well, there was a sign outside. how can I tell her that I really, really, by heart, did not see the sign outside because I was too eager, I was too happy, and anyway. So, all in all, though, this is a fisheye shot, and as you see the distortion here, for me, it just looks beautiful. Now, the beauty of tilt shift lens is, sorry, not tilt shift, fisheye lens is, if you tilt it down, it gives you a different view. If you tilt it slightly up, it gives you a different view. And if you hold it straight, it gives you a different view. Now, this one is a straight shot, like eye level. Okay, this one is a Cathedral of Assumption in Louisville, Kentucky. Again, taken in 2016. That was a long time ago. I loved this beautiful seating here, and it was like red. So I went up to the choir loft. I was looking down, and I tilted my the fisheye lens just slightly down, and you see it gives you a different perspective altogether. Okay, it's not a straight eye level shot anymore. Now, this is a cathedral in Hartford, Connecticut. It's called St. Joseph Cathedral. And the windows here are from floor to the ceiling. I mean, this is one of the spectacular cathedrals that I've seen. You don't need to travel to Europe to see some spectacular stuff. I'm telling you, US really has some beautiful churches and cathedrals. Anyway, I was again at the choir loft, but this time I was not tilting down. I am at the eye level, I'm aiming straight, and that's how you don't see a lot of distortion in the middle, and it's a usual fisheye shot. Okay, and also choir loft. So anytime I go to a church, I start talking to people. I ask them, hey, do you have a choir loft? Can I go up there? Do I have the permission? Always, try to be more inquisitive and ask if, at the most, what they can say is no, right? Big deal. Okay. So sometimes, you have to ask the cleaning staff or janitor walking by, hey, can you put the lights on for me? I promise I'll only take 5 minutes, blah, blah, blah. Right. So, because when the church has lights on, it gives you a different look versus when the church does not have any lights on, it gives you a different look altogether. Now, this is Southwark Cathedral, or one of the churches in London. I forgot the name of this right now. Or Farm Street Church or something. I'm sorry. I was just there. This was taken in 2015, but I went back this November, but I don't remember the name of the church. But look at this. Again, choir loft, and I was going, so you can walk around all this area. So I was standing right in the middle, in the second floor, and then looking down. So your fisheye will give you really, really, really different perspective. All right. So there is a little story behind this, and I would like to share this. Again, remember I told you that you have to be inquisitive. You need to ask people, hey, what else can I do here, right? So this is Baltimore Basilica. Baltimore Basilica is really beautiful. And I went there, I think 15, 20 minutes to closing. And the security lady told me that, hey, we'll be closing in 15, 20 minutes. Okay, I go around, I take my pictures and everything. Done, 5 minutes to closing. And then she comes to me, she's like, hey, I want to show you something. And I didn't even ask her if there is anything else. She was just happy to take me. She literally held my hand, took me down to the basement. This is what I see. How beautiful is that? And so I had like 5 minutes to get the shot. So luckily I got my tripod, so I was able to take at least a good shot and then got out. But that's that. So again, fisheye lens gives you a different perspective, and your inquisitive nature also helps you to take better pictures. Now, telephoto lens, whereas fisheye lens and a wide-angle lens, they give you like a lot more extreme perspective. Telephoto lens is to isolate the objects or just the altar, or you want to zoom in onto a particular window or a painting or something like that, right? So I don't use telephoto lens a lot, just every now and then, okay? One example. This is a 70 to 200 lens. This is Church of Transfiguration in Cape Cod. Oh my God, I loved the altar. So again, handheld, quick shot. It was not very, very sharp. So I sharpened it a little bit in Topaz AI Sharpen, but it got the job done for me, right? And this is a church in Morristown, New Jersey, St. Peter's. And yeah, I really love those flags. And sometimes, well, most of the times, I don't know what some of the flags mean. I mean, I understand the flag of US and the flag of England, but rest of them, the religious flags, I don't know. And do I care? No, because for me, a visual, like the beauty is what matters. And more than looking for like a meaning of it, I like to enjoy the colors and all that. So again, everybody has their own way of interpreting stuff, I guess, right? Anyway, now people ask me like, hey, how do you actually plan the shoot? Like, I cannot really know about 600 churches, right? So how do I plan? So first of all, a lot of patience, which I don't have. So I have to build it, right? I'm still work in progress right now, right? One thing that I understood was there is no happenstance. It's not just like, okay, you don't plan for nothing and then see what turns up. No. If you're going to a particular city, you need to know which church you want to go, because not all churches are great to photograph. I mean, they're great places for worship, but for photography, you need to have a different kind of ornate, magnificent, opulence. I know that sounds really bad for a person who just wants to worship, but we want to show to the world how beautiful the church is. That means it has to have that opulence, right? So for that, you need to do your research, right? You need to put in the time up front. And once you reach the church or any place of worship for the matter, or museum, wherever, you need to give yourself some time to set up. When I say set up, it doesn't have to be a tripod. I want you to sit down, take in the ambience, close your eyes, try to just imprint that on your, on your mind. Because when you come back and put everything into your computer, and then you want to start processing, you want to recall what you felt, what you saw, all that. It's not what you saw with your eyes. It's also what your mind grabbed at the time and how you felt. So that's the reason why you need that time before you start shooting. Okay, because once you start shooting, you're too busy with your dials and this is underexposed, oh, this is overexposed. So you're bogged down with all those technical details. And that is the reason why please allow yourself some time and don't be in a hurry. And now I'm telling you this. You think that I follow my own rules? No. So I have to tell myself every time that, hey, calm down, relax, and don't be in a hurry. I have to literally tell myself all these things. Okay, even today, after so many years. Anyway, now, if you're not sure whether you can photograph at the particular time, ask. It's better to ask. And when you do that, be polite. Don't be demanding. There is a reason why I put that, because I have friends who would be rude, who would demand and be a little condescending, that kind of thing. So don't do that, because if you're in their house, and if you're a guest in somebody else's house, how would you behave? It's the same thing. Okay, even if you don't believe in their religion, suppose for example, I did go to Abu Dhabi to photograph the Grand Mosque, and they asked me to put on abaya or burqa to cover my hair and everything. Only my face can show, and I didn't have it, so I had to get it from them. So all this is way back, like we're talking about a few years ago, before even Corona, right? But even then, I was like, oh my God, somebody else wore this before me and before me and before that. So many people, I don't think they washed the abaya. It's black covering. So I'm like, oh my God, so many people sweat in this, and then now I'm putting that on. So that already kind of it's like cringy, right? But if I'm rude with them, you know what? They would kick me out of the mosque. So I had to just shut and then just do my business. And then I can be all disgusted after I come out, but I cannot show however my true feelings are. Or I cannot start asking questions about like, oh, why should I do this? It's their rule. You don't want to follow, go. So that's what we need to internalize, that you agree with their policies or not, you still have to follow them. Okay. Next, what to photograph. When you walk into a facility, right, a structure, I generally start with an altar, okay? And most of the times the ceilings are beautiful, so take a look at it. Please look up, okay? Organs, some of the organs that I've seen with like fantastic organs, just isolating them itself would give you so much joy in photographing them. I love stained glass windows. When I'm in front of a stained glass window and you give me a tripod and a zoom lens and then leave me alone, I am going to do all kinds of intentional camera movements, ICMs. I do pans and zoom blurs and all kinds of stuff. I love stained glass. Now, dapple light, I'm going to show you some examples. That is casting through the stained glass onto either the floor, onto the seating, onto the altar. I mean, it makes beautiful, beautiful image. So I'm going to show you some examples of that. And now, when you go to Orthodox churches, don't forget to look into those intricate paintings. Oh my God, their iconography is amazing, right? And then definitely see if they have any crypts and if you can go into them. And smaller chapels. By the way, when you go to the Basilica, the National Basilica, give yourself plenty of time. We're talking about 5-6 hours at least. The reason is, you know how many smaller chapels the Basilica has? You're from the region, so you probably know already. The first time I went, I didn't even go down because I didn't even know that I should ask for it, right? Or I could. So I just spent all my time, like a couple of hours in the main altar, and then I left. So the next time is when I went to the crypt and other smaller chapels. They have a little area for India, a little area for China, a little area for Mexico. And so it is like, it's just beautiful, like a representation of different cultures, Christianity, but how it is being represented in different countries, it was shown there. So really spend a lot of time, even if you're not photographing, just observing. Okay. Now, when it comes to composition, there are usually a couple of different ways that you can look at it. Symmetry, which I'll talk about, asymmetry, symmetry. But always look for the leading lines, because there are, so many opportunities in a church for leading lines. Okay, the pillars, the carpets, the flooring, the tiles, anything and everything can be used as leading lines. Okay. And always look up. They will surprise you. And even some museums and some of the World Trade Center I talked about, National Library of Congress, if you go to Natural History Museum in London, all these places have such beautiful ceilings. So please look up. All right. And then close your eyes, calm down, and see if you can manufacture some new compositions with your imagination, and see if you can implement that in the field. This is not something that you can sit at home and do it. You have to be in the place, observe, close your eyes, and see if you can see something different. So again, I told you I love using my fisheye lens. I tried to come up with different compositions. I'm going to show you 1 or 2 examples there. So let's go for one aspect of the composition that I really like is symmetry. Okay, and symmetry, it's pleasing, your minds can easily understand symmetry, so you're at peace. Okay? When you don't understand something, and that's when you get restless and it becomes a little bit more thought-provoking. So 80-90% of the people go for symmetrical composition. Okay, so let's see some example. That's the symmetrical, right? Nothing great about it. Everybody understands it. Asymmetry is a little tricky, right? So asymmetry is, well, lack of symmetry, right? So either you're getting like a domination on either right side or the left side, right? And generally, if you really use your asymmetry as a compositional element, usually you have like a 1/3 to 2/3 kind of composition. I'm going to show you what I mean in a second, right there, right? So something that makes you think like, oh, okay, so how would this be if it is symmetrical, or how would this be in real life? Because here I'm using a couple of things. Not only I'm using asymmetry, I'm also using a fisheye lens, so I'm completely distorting what is a normal view for the the audience, right? So they pay a little extra time trying to understand that, and that's a good thing. And like I said, some people don't like distortions, and then they look at it like, no, that's not for me, and then they walk away, and that's okay too. So more asymmetrical compositions for me. And this is what I'm talking about, like dappled light. Look at this. The bench is not painted in these colors, but the light coming from these windows from the other side is casting those shadows there, the delightful shadows. All right. This is a church, by the way, in Arlington, Virginia. I forgot the name of the church, but now this one piece of advice that I'm going to give you is going to make a big difference. I'm telling you, because that's what happened to me back in like a few years ago. So we don't pay a lot of attention unless somebody points it out, unless you're a very good observational person. I'm not. I'm still a work in progress, right? There are reflections everywhere, in the floors, in water, on piano tops, especially on those grand pianos that get polished every time, like nice black or brown surface. So can anybody tell me what this is? I mean, it's a church, but can anybody tell me what is the surface the reflection is showing up on?
Piano?
Yes. How do you know that?
The crease
Because
down
of
the center.
hinge. Yes, the hinge, yes. Okay. So if I didn't tell you that, and say you're not an observational person, then you would start thinking like, okay, how did she do that? Did she do that in Photoshop or whatever? So this is my very first piano reflection image that I made. So, and from there, I kept going. Okay, so now the reason why this is asymmetrical, and this is not, by the way, a purposeful asymmetrical composition. This is because the pianos usually they don't put it right in the middle of the church, right? They're usually on the side, and usually people are there, so I cannot just push the piano right to the middle. I like symmetry, but I cannot push and then get kicked out of the church, right? So I use whatever tool that I have at my hands. So all right, and this is I think this is Church of Christ, the name, or Christ Church, or some variations of Church of Christ. This is Albany. By the way, if you are ever in Albany, there are about 7 or 8 beautiful churches, but skip all of those because there are regular cathedrals and basilicas. But this is unique, different, and look at all this wood ceiling, okay? And every window came from different churches that were closed down. So can you imagine? I mean, I still have the book that the lady that gave me for free to give me the history of the church, like how it was made. So anyway, again, this is a piano reflection. That's the hinge of the piano, thing. Now, this is National Basilica. Now, I'm really happy that you guys are going to National Basilica right after you see this. So I'm hoping that I'm going to inspire you guys to look on the floors. So basically, if you go to the main altar, mark my words right now, okay? Go to the altar. On the left side, I was sitting on the steps. They're like 2 steps down, and then you see this nice little chapel area. So I was sitting on the steps right next to the main altar, and I put my camera on the last step, like so it's literally standing on the step, the camera, and then I was able to capture these reflections, and yeah. All right, and can anybody guess what this is?
Baptismal font?
Yes. All right. Okay. So, do you know how much is the width of this one? I want you to guess if you could.
No guesses.
Yeah. So this is about 2.5 feet wide. That's it. Then why is it looking wider? Is because I was literally holding on to my camera over the edge of the other end of the edge of the font. Okay. And I'm literally like almost touching the water. Okay. And then because I'm using this extreme wide angle lens, the 14 millimeter, and so the foreground looks bigger, much bigger than the background, obviously. And that's how I got this image. Okay. So this is the church that I was talking about, the Cathedral Basilica in Louisville, Kentucky. Okay. And also, different lenses will give you different outcomes. And let's talk about that. Right. So this is a 14 millimeter rectilinear lens. And this church is right next to the World Trade Center. And the nickname for this is the Little Chapel That Stood. So basically, it withstood a fire back in 1900s. Nothing happened. The surrounding area got all burned, but nothing happened in the chapel. And during 9/11, nothing happened to this place. And for next 8 months of cleanup, actually, firefighters and the policemen, they almost practically lived here, or took rest and whatever. So this served as almost like a headquarters for service people. Okay, so this has lots of importance, significance. Okay, so anyway, this is a piano reflection again. This is a 14 millimeter lens, rectilinear, so you see straight lines. But if you use a different lens, something like that, it gives you a different perspective. Now, there is a little bit of a white balance that is slightly different, right? Now, why is that? Because one of them, I'm not sure which one is which, but one of them is a Sony, one of them is a Canon. So inherently, how they see, even if you put them into daylight at the same exact temperature, it records a little differently. So that's how it was. That's why. Now, this is a fisheye, and this is a regular shot, right? And this is a church in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. So this is Duke University Chapel. This I went, I think, on the day of Thanksgiving, and they were open 8:30 at night. Can you imagine? So anyway, in this case, first of all, I want to point out a few things. I used the 14 millimeter lens, so you see straight lines. Second thing, what I did is I used the frame, use this another frame, and then you have the whole church. So I was standing outside of the church looking in. And I see this beautiful wood. It was already gleaming with nice yellow tones. So I played that up. So I bumped up the saturation just a little bit more. And also anywhere I see this brown wood, I played that up. And the rest of it, I painstakingly selected and desaturated it. So when it comes to contrast, generally what we think is the light contrast, right? The darks and the lights. But there is color contrast, and then there is saturation contrast. So you can you have to start thinking outside the box just a little bit. So I try to just play with the saturation contrast a little bit here. And so anyway, this is 14 millimeter lens, but look at my fisheye. I mean, I think this is spectacular. I mean, this is good, but this is spectacular. That's what I think. You might think differently. But anyway, so different lenses, different outcomes. All right. Now, I want to show you some of the ceilings. Most of the churches have domes and beautiful ornate paintings, mosaics, and such. So I'm going to show you some examples. This is National Library of Congress. And this is Southwark Cathedral in London.
We have a quick question on Facebook. You were talking about wide angles in the churches, but what about panoramas?
I will show you some of the examples of the panoramas, but I don't do regular horizontal panoramas. I am known to do vertoramas, which are vertical panoramas. And I'm going to show you some pictures that are coming up. Yeah? All right.
Thank you.
But even they are made with wide angle lenses though. Okay. All right. So this is a church in Annapolis, St. Mary Historic Church. But that's done with the fisheye lens, and this is done with the tilt shift lens. All right, so again, different lenses, different outcomes. Now, other compositional elements to give you some ideas of what to look for, and look at, so I use the baptismal font as my foreground. There is a baptism going on, so I didn't want to show a lot of, and I don't want to show people's faces. So they kind of blurred. That's the reason why there was something going on. That was my third time going there. And every time I go, this is St. Paul's Church in Midtown Manhattan. Every time I go, there was some event or the other. So finally I said, you know what, if it is okay with you, I'll take the shots anyway. And he said, go ahead. And I got it. And this is a chandelier. This is the Grand Mosque of Abu Dhabi. And this is huge. The image is not going to do any justice to the chandelier. And they have a bunch of them. There's one here. There is one there. There are, I think, about 5 of them. 1 in the middle and 4 in the four corners. So 4 sides, actually, not corners. Okay. And then the carpet pretty much matches the design of the chandelier. Again, I'm not doing any justice in my opinion. It is much, much, much ornate when you see it in person. Now, this is a mosque in Dubai. Now, see how ornate the ceiling here is. And this is a cathedral in Albany. I'm using this as my foreground element and a design component. And you see how I'm using this carpet and the font and the sculpture as my foreground element leading into the altar. I did not know what these baskets are for because I'm not Christian. So my first time when I saw, like, I know, oh, Christine, my friend was with me, like, Christine, what are these for? I like them. I'm like, no, yeah, if you have money, put them in it. So yeah, I use them. I arrange them like this so that I can use them as my foreground. And this is Baltimore Basilica. I use this as my leading line into it and use the pulpit. This is another cathedral from Albany. When you go on Christmas Day, this is what you see, or Christmas season. So I have a kind of a tradition, either like the day of Christmas or the day before Christmas. I like to go to any of these nearby cities. Like when I say nearby, like 2, 3, 4 hours away, right? And then I already have a database of stuff, churches and their church timings and such. So that's my tradition because I don't celebrate Christmas. So this is my way of celebrating it. And so I'm using these candles as my foreground element. And I'm also using, these are my leading lines. And this is National Cathedral. So you have National Basilica, which is, I mean, highly beautiful in my opinion. And then there is National Cathedral, which is equally beautiful. And if you go in wintertime, especially January, February, you see a lot of beautiful dapple light that's nicely casting all over. So there is one photographer friend of mine who works as a volunteer there. He's been volunteer there for almost like 20 years. He's the one who told me that I should go in first week of February or second week of February to get the best light. And you got to be there first thing in the morning. So there I was. Now, Orthodox churches, I mean, you have to see. All right, this is right outside of DC. This is St. Andrew's Church, right outside of DC in Maryland. Look it up. This is a tiny little place, right? And again, I was there on Thanksgiving Day. They were closed. So I called them. Generally, most of the Orthodox churches, the pastors live within the compound of the church. So he was there and he was able to open the place up for me for a couple of hours, and then we were there. This is it. It's not a big church, but I spent so much time there. It's just beautiful. This is St. Sophia Church. This is Yonkers, New York. And this is also St. Sophia Church. So this is close up, and this is, standing back a little bit. And look at how beautiful the dome is. This is also St. Sophia Church, but then I went into the choir loft, and then I was looking down. And you see how this is not uniform, and this is all like panels, I think, put together. So it's not like a little round. You have to see the difference. Yeah. All right, so these are various compositions, the same church. You see how many different things that you can actually work, right? Anyway, this is Bronx, New York. Got, so, and this is, I don't remember where this is from. One of the Orthodox churches. This is Boston. Forgot the name of the church, but this is Boston. And this is right there in Arlington, Virginia. I work in Crystal City, so it's very close to me. So these colors, they're real. I did not saturate them. It's fairly new church. The paintings were only about 4 years old, I think, at the time when I got this. I think this is 2016, 2017. So look at them, how beautiful they are, right? Now, when I sometimes go to a church, even after I do my research, what happens is I go there because I did not know their customs. I did my research because, Google, I put in, say, Mormon church, and then they have some beautiful interiors. But then I go there, like, oh, you're not a Mormon, so you're not, you're not allowed to go in. What do?
Quick
I
question.
just photograph from outside. Yes.
Sorry, another question from Facebook. What is the aperture of your fish islands?
So I generally use it at 2.8. It can go up to 22, but I use it at 2.8 because it really has good depth of field.
Thank you.
No problem. All right. So this is the Mormon church right outside, or Mormon temple right outside of DC area. I think Kensington, Maryland. Everybody who travels on 495, they probably would see this, at least the top portion of this, right? So I go there. I did not even know that they have lights outside for Christmas. So I go there and look, oh, they were very nice. But then they said, nope, you're not allowed to go inside. However, be our guest and do whatever outside, we have no problem. So they have a little reflecting pool. Look at that. Okay, so I literally put my camera on the edge of the little pool, and I got the reflections perfect, right? And every year they have like different color combination and such. So this is the next year. I go all the way to Boston. I went to 6 or 7 churches, but this church, they won't let me in. But they do have a reflecting pool outside. So it was almost blue hours. So my son and I, we just waited. And I think got paid handsomely for that effort, just waiting. This is a church I was passing by. I like the steeple. I like the little shape of this. So there was nothing going on in the sky, so I just converted it to black and white. And this is a church I was passing by, closed. This is somewhere Homedale, New Jersey. And I didn't even have my ND filters, but I did have a tripod and a remote. So I took about a couple hundred shots on the tripod with my remote, and then combined them in Photoshop to get the long exposures. So basically, when you do a mean mode and layer them, it's going to be giving you that streaky effect. And a lot of people use that to either obliterate the crowds, say take about a 30 minutes worth of shots from a busy intersection. If you combine all of them in Photoshop and then use a mean mode or a median mode, and it will make all the moving objects either disappear or making them into streaks. So I use the same technique. So it's not fake exactly because I actually captured it, but it was not captured in one shot, but captured in 200 shots and then combined later. Okay, so somebody asked, what about panoramas? So panoramas, I don't do horizontal in a traditional sense. However, I do go vertical, and sometimes I almost break my neck. So let's do some of the examples of it. If anybody is interested in this technique, I just released a course at Kelby 1. If you go to kelby1.com and look me up, you will see my course on waterramas. It is very involved, a lot of effort, and really worth it. So if you do want to really learn about it, look up the course. But here it is to give you some inspiration. Okay, this is a church in the New York Financial District, Church of the Most Holy Redeemer. The colors are beautiful. It's a 7 frames, and each frame has 5 bracketed images. So that means 35 images stitched together to go from here all the way, and this is almost at the back of my neck, right? So yeah, and I stitched them together. This is St. Patrick's Cathedral. This is a story that I wanted to tell you, that to the amount of planning that I do. Okay, so I go to New York City quite often because I'm only 1 hour away from there, 1.5 hours at the most, depending on the traffic. So I went to St. Patrick's Cathedral a few times, 5, 6 times. And every time I go, I cannot even enter into the church freely. So many people, it's always packed with visitors, even in like middle of the winter. Okay. So then after failed attempts so many times, then I said, okay, what is the best way to get what I want? And so entire New York City, after celebrations of New Year's Eve, they get drunk pretty much. When I say entire, exaggerating just a little bit, right? So everybody's sleeping, hungover, whatever. So this is 2018, January 1st, 6 o'clock. I was there knocking on the door, and there was a cop outside, and I pleaded with him that I should be done within 15, 20 minutes. I cannot find any parking. Can I please park here? Please, pretty please. And sometimes it's okay to flirt, and sometimes you get away, sometimes you don't. I got away that day. Go in, there were like a couple of people. Nobody's there, and the mass is about to start by 7. So I had about 30 minutes or so to photograph. This is empty. This is heaven. So I didn't even bother with my tripod, because setting up the tripod and then looking for the symmetry and all that, it's going to take a lot of time. So I handheld my camera, just got it done. And so I was standing in the middle of the church. And okay, I have to show you another image of the St. Patrick's where I was standing right here in front of the altar. Maybe it's coming up later. But anyway, yeah. So there is a freedom in hand holding your camera, because then you can freely move, you can be faster, and you can get away. And when the cop is waiting outside to give you a ticket, this is hand-holding is the better way to do it. Anyway, New York City is home for a lot of ornate churches. You just have to do your research and get the database going, okay? And this is St. Monica's, that's Midtown. This is Grace Church. It's one of the very old churches of New York. And this is almost falling apart in the sense that lots of paint peeling and all that. It was in a bad state. I just felt very bad. But do you see, if you look closely, there is a light pouring through the through the windows there. It was just beautiful. This colorful church is from Louisville, Kentucky, called St. Louis Bertrand. This is the Cathedral of Assumption that I was talking about. You have seen a few pictures before, but this is the waterama of it. I think this is about 6 images stitched together. This is St. Anthony of Padua, Jersey City, New Jersey. New Jersey does not have a lot of ornate churches, right? So I saw the pictures of a wedding photographer of this church, and I said, this is not bad. I want to go there. I call, I take permission to photograph, I go there, and the pastor there was very grumpy. And so I told him, okay, so after I take pictures, I'm going to give you some, I'm going to send you some. And then he looks at me, and then he's like, why? I live in the church. I don't need to see pictures. If I want to see the church, I'm in the church. I can look at it. I said, okay, thank you. Bye. So, yeah. So, and this is our one and only Cathedral Basilica in Newark, New Jersey. We don't have many. So, and this is really, really beautiful. However, I took a little liberty of playing with white balance, okay, and changed the color slightly of the ceiling and, gave a different shade of yellow than what it actually is. This is the National Cathedral. Every year, a couple of times in a year, they give you special permission for photographers to come in before the actual church opens for public. So this is before Corona. I don't know if they're still doing the same or not, but this is one of those times that I was there early morning, I think at 8 o'clock. Everybody, like almost 30 photographers lined up with tripods. So I went there, handheld, sat in front of them, so I was not in their way because they were all standing with their tripods, got my waterramas, and then got the etch out of it. So this is another handheld waterrama of the Grand Mosque of Abu Dhabi. You see what I'm talking about, the chandelier and the carpet matching in design pretty much. And by the way, all the gold that you see actually is gold. It's not just paint, it's actual gold. This is one of the biggest places I've seen. 40,000 people can sit there and worship at one time. So you can imagine how big it is. Okay, so anything that they do there in Middle East, I think they do a little over the top. This is a mall. I was like, I did not have any words. Like, how can you have a mall this ornate? This should be a museum, right? There are 4 Starbucks, man, in this mall. I don't understand. That's a Starbucks sign, okay? I'm like, oh, this is a crime. This is a sin. This should be a museum. I was muttering to myself while I was taking pictures. This is National Library of Congress. This is also handheld because they don't allow you to do tripods. I don't know how many of you went to Natural History Museum, London. You need probably a full day, if not more than one day, to actually go through so many artifacts and everything, right? So a friend and I, we go to London exclusively for architectural photography. So this is a Sunday morning. We were there before the crowd started forming the line, and we were the first ones there. 7:30 in the morning. We waited there for an hour. We run inside when they open the doors, run all the way to the top while everybody is still scrambling. And we got our waterramas. Did not see one artifact, not one exhibit. No, we just came out because we have other places to see. But how spectacular is this Vodorama? And this is handheld. And I used Canon 11-24 lens, very heavy lens, but somehow I was able to manage the hand holding part of it. World Trade Center. Now, unfortunately, there are a lot more stores around here. It gotten too busy. This was like 2 days after it opened, so it's pretty much empty here. If you see a couple of guards here and there, and also handheld. At this time, I was trying to use a monopod. They told me no. I was trying to use the gorilla pod. They said no. Then I said, you know what? Okay, I'm going to sit down on the floor. You cannot say no to that. So I sat down and I did the Vodorama. And they were just looking at me like, she probably is crazy. We're not going to argue with her anymore. Okay, so we're almost coming to the end. I just want to take a moment to say a couple of things that are a little personal. So I grew up a Hindu, right? I was born into a Hindu family, and I never went to a church until I was 43 years old. And I was married to a Muslim, so I never converted to Islam, but I'm familiar with that faith as well. I was never overly religious either way, anyway. But when the coronavirus struck, whatever the little faith that I have, and then I mean, I did believe in God. It's just that I didn't believe in rituals quite a bit, the customs. I know that without God, there's probably nothing gets done. That much I knew, at least in my heart, right? But I really started questioning everything. Like, what's happening to this world? Why is this happening? And all those things, right? But at the core, my upbringing or my beliefs are still strong, but they're fuzzy at the edges. So I wanted to represent that in my photography because I did not know how to express this in my words. So I did a little project, right? So the core is still there, but then you have a lot of doubts, lots of uncertainty, lots and questions. So this is a series that I've done during COVID time. Most of it is done in Photoshop. And then I started going to the churches with the exclusive idea of doing, blurred images. But at that time, when I started the project, most of it is done in Photoshop only, just to express my feelings. So I keep thinking different names for the series. I said Shaken Faith and Shaken But Strong, different names. Nothing is getting stuck yet. So this is still, again, work in progress. So I did that series, and then I changed this to black and white, and just left a little bit of color. I know that we all go through our stages of at least one stage in our life or something. We ask questions. Asking questions is not blasphemy or anything. It's not bad. It's just a phase, I think. So anyway, just to represent that, my mindset of whatever is going on around me is this series is what represents all that. So with that, I just want to tell you guys that personal projects are important. Expressing your thoughts through your imagery is what photography is all about. It doesn't have to be the exact representation of what it is, but also combine that with what you think, what your thoughts are, what your social beliefs, your religious beliefs, and whatever. And think about this. It's not just you. A lot of people are going through your flight, but maybe they're not sharing what you're sharing. And also remember that you're doing it for yourself first, and anybody else that looks at it, admires it or not, or whatever, that is all secondary. Are you enjoying what you're doing? Are you being fulfilled? Are you happy? Are you having fun? All those things matter more than anything else. Okay, so I also want to say one more thing. To get this kind of effect, this is not done in post, this is done in camera. Now, anybody who wants to know how I did it, let me know. I'm waiting. Then I want to show you guys.
I think
Oh, okay.
everyone here would like to know.
Okay. So there is a filter. If you go to Amazon and you look for, okay, let me just bring up Amazon. Okay, just a minute. I bought a bunch of them. So this is what I bought. Okay. So this is what gives you that kind of look. And now go have fun with it. Yeah, you can buy different lens. This is 77. So remember, there are like different kinds of filters. This is the Whirlpool, the camera effect. That's the filter that you're looking for. And if you want to explore other stuff, that's fine, but this is what you want to get this effect.
Looks like the old film spot filter.
Yeah, something similar, but not exactly, because it doesn't give you the same effect. Okay, and then, so this is a straight up effect. This is a straight up effect. In this case, what I did was, this was on my 24 to 105 lens. So I also, with the filter on, I zoomed in or I zoomed out. I did one of those because when I'm doing the zoom blurs, I do a couple of hundred of them, and usually one of them lands. 199 don't land exactly the way I want it. So yeah, so I did a zoom blur on top of the filter on the lens. Okay. All right, so that is my last slide. And if you guys want to see any of my NFT collections, I did a few of them that's on OpenSea. You don't have to. I just put it in there in case if you want to see them, and that's okay. And again, my email address, pinguva@gmail.com. I do selectively some mentoring in photography and post-processing. And most of all, what I enjoy like really is, almost all of us photographers, we like to travel and we take pictures, come back, we don't do anything with them. And some because they're lazy, some because they don't know how to proceed, some because they're overwhelmed, some because they don't have a guidance. Okay, I'm one of the lazy ones. I still have pictures from 2015, 2016, 2018, whatever, right? So what I like to do, that's why I call this portfolio development, is like, suppose you went to Rome and then you come back with like 3,000 images. Now, what I can do is to have a session, a one-on-one, or a couple of sessions, but start with one, go through the images and give you the ideas and give you some homework. And then the next session, 2 weeks or 3 weeks later, you come back and then you show me what you have done. And then I can critique and then give you more ideas and help you post-processing. And that is, so if you're spending, say, $5,000 on the trip, but you're not doing anything with it, and I do charge money, it's not free, but by spending another couple of $100, you actually are putting that into actual, work, right? So, and that's what I love to do the most. I don't like to teach, say, oh, I don't know Lightroom, can you teach me? I say, no, I am not that kind of mentor. So go learn Lightroom by yourself, go learn Photoshop by yourself, but I'm here to show you some creative techniques and that kind of thing. So, and I also do small groups, like, 2 or 3 people come together, and that way it is more cost effective for people. Like I said, you can find me on social media, but the best bet would be to reach out to me via Facebook. All right. So with that, I'm going to stop talking, and I talked a lot, and now I'll take any more questions that you guys have.
Does anyone have any questions? Okay, one moment and I will work my way around the room.
Okay.
Actually, I have two questions. The first question is, how long are you spending on one of those pictures?
You're talking about the abstracts or the blurs?
A picture that you would call a winner that you really like. How much time are you spending on that picture?
Okay, so borderomas, usually I spend a couple of days to a week because I don't do continuously work on them. I walk away sometimes because remember, I also work full time. So, but if I'm doing the abstracts, usually they're pretty fast. I do about like 10, 15 minutes and see if I like, I have to pivot, then another 10, 15 minutes, something like that. So if I already have an idea of what I'm doing, it doesn't take too much time. The wordoramas are a different beast altogether, but general post-processing. But if I am still trying to formulate an idea, and the idea is not concrete in my head, then the experimenting in Photoshop takes a lot more time. Sometimes takes a week or 2 weeks or whatever, because I'm still trying to see, oh, the motion blur works, the path blur works, or something else works, and I have to redo it. So yeah. So I cannot really give you a concrete answer, but anywhere between 10 minutes to a week.
Okay, my next question is, you said that you had some plugins, and you mentioned one of them as Topaz.
Yes, Topaz Labs.
Yeah, which one are you using? Are you using all of them, or just using one or two or three of them?
So Sharpen and Noise AI, both of them, I use them on a regular basis. Wherever that is needed, right? So I'm still old school. I don't use Topaz Studio. I have the individual plugins like the Topaz Texture Effects. I have Topaz Impressions. So as plugins, like, before the Studio came popular. So most of the times I like to use them, individual plugins from way back when.
Okay, thank you.
For example, no, let me see if I can bring that up. Not. Meanwhile, I'll take the other questions while Photoshop is coming up.
Well, first of all, thank you very much. And I'm especially pleased that you won't be entering any entries into our upcoming competition on photographing places of worship. But, and you may want to go back to this as well, but towards the very end, you were showing blurred images, but a portion of the image was spot on sharp. Can you briefly tell us how you accomplished that?
Yeah, so just let me show you. So these plugins we're talking about like 2015, 16 is when I bought these things. And not the AI ones, but the rest of them, the JPEG and all the other stuff. Not JPEG, I'm sorry. Texture effects. Where is the other one? Oh, there is my impressions, lens effects. Lens effects is even older, like 2013 or something. So I use all these plugins as necessary, okay? So I just wanted to let you know that I don't use the Topaz Lab Studio. Okay, so this is what I am doing actually yesterday and today. Busy with my house thing. All right, so you asked me, hold on. Let me go back to
Second or third from the end.
this one. Okay, this one.
Yeah.
So this is already sharp, like if you see. Do you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, so this is already sharp as you see, right? So all I did was applied a motion blur, okay? And then I brought in the original picture as a top layer, as a copy, and I used the black mask to cover it completely and used the 30%, 40%, I think, brush, and then I just brushed it back into the image, the sharp portion of it.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Yeah.
Any other questions? I think that's it from everyone here. I want to thank you very much, Padma, for joining us today, and thank you everyone for coming. And we look forward to having more programs from you in the future, probably.
Thank you, Padma.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Mike, can you, you had mentioned something about tickets for the Basilica. Can you mention something a little bit about that to our stream?
No, so there's two different things. Our field trip, Ed's taken care of that and set up the information, and that's to the National Shrine. The National Cathedral, in the past, pre-pandemic, you could just show up and you could walk around and take pictures and stuff. But now, you either have to sign up for a paid tour that's timed, or you have to pay for a general tour time, $15 a ticket, and so you just can't walk in with your tripod anymore. And if you look at the calendar, it's really limited on which days and times you can go into the National Cathedral. So like I looked, and unless you go on a weekday, which some of the retired folks here could do, the next time I could go would be like the 20th. Is when the next tickets are available. But it used to be free and you just walk in. Now it's timed and ticket purchase.
Well, thank you, Mike.
Okay, I think that is everything for tonight. Join us next week for our contest.
You have the calendar.
It's over here.
Digital open, digital.
Digital
Okay,
open
digital
contest.
open contest, and we will see everyone next week. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, everyone.